Okay, welcome. I see everyone's connecting to audio. Welcome everybody to this space. We're so glad to have you here.
Hi, everyone.
We'll wait for a few more people to connect to audio before we begin. We hope everyone is well today. Thank you all for coming. This is a webinar about establishing intuition for healthy living. And it's brought to you by myself, Dr. Val from Priority One Wellness, as well as Tallman from Nourished Roots. We are really excited and feeling this good energy today in sharing this offering with you guys. Today, we'll be discussing intuitive eating, as well as intuitive movement, and why intuition and tapping into it is extremely important for just your overall healthy living and well-being. So we're really excited to move through this. As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Val. I am the owner and founder of Priority One Wellness. I am a doctor of physical therapy and a board certified neurologic specialist, as well as a 200-hour yoga teacher and a Reiki practitioner. Through Priority One Wellness, I help individuals develop a toolbox. So we go through individualized care plans so that we can help reach your goals. We work on you feeling in control of your physical and emotional health. And together we discuss different energy and physical practices that might resonate with you to make sure that you're achieving the goals that you desire. And now I'll pass this along to Allie to discuss Nourished Roots and then lead us into intuitive eating.
All right, thanks so much, Valerie. Hi, everybody. I see some familiar names on here. It's so good to see you. If you are new to either Valerie, we really appreciate you guys coming today, wherever you are located. My name is Allison Tallman. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm the founder of the nutrition consulting company, Nourished Roots. Nourished Roots, I founded it in January of 2019. I found that there was really a lack of reliable education and resources out there for my community. And when there was education, I found that it was very sciencey, very hard for people to understand. And I started Nourished Roots really to provide people with accurate, down-to-earth information and really realistic and balanced methods. So I'm, as some of my clients who are probably going to get this replay will say about me, is I'm very realistic, down to earth. I include all foods with my clients. There's no dieting. There's no counting calories. I really take a realistic and sustainable approach. So I help individuals to gain clarity in what to eat. I help them to feel less confused about healthy eating. Again, I know there is so much information out there. I have clients and family members every day who message me saying, like, have you seen this new, trend or whatever? And a lot of times I'm like, no, let me do the research and I'll get back to you on it. And there's just constantly stuff coming up. And it's wild to me how much is out there. And a lot of it is not healthy for us or our body, or it is not sustainable. I help my clients to build consistent eating habits. And similar to Val, I help my clients to reach their goals and sustain them. So I know both of us are very goal driven with our clients, and we both take a very individualized approach. If you are looking for recipes, this is one of the number one things I hear from people. I always just like to point this out. I do have a website with a recipe category, and they are very simple, easy recipes. The reason for that is my goal is for you to simplify nutrition and incorporate nutrition in your everyday habits. So for example, like weeknight dinners. So we're going to go into a lot of great stuff today, as Valerie mentioned, talking about all about intuitive eating. And then she's going to be talking about intuition through yoga and meditation, more of like the emotional, spiritual side of things, and as well as healing. So we're really excited. I'm really excited to learn from Valerie today. And we will be taking questions at the end. So if you guys do have any, then please keep them to the end and we will address them. Obviously, we're doing this as a virtual event, so if there's any glitch or anything, we promise we'll do our best to make it back on here. And then lastly, stick around to the end. We both have something special to share with you guys. I like to start off with this. You can't live a full life on an empty stomach. And something I talk about all the time with my clients is that we only have one life to live, and our health is our most important thing that we have. And by living a life of restriction and of saying, I can't eat bread, that's why I put bread as the background here, or specific food items, you're living your life in restriction, and you're also not nourishing your body. It's so important to nourish your body for both your physical, your mental, your spiritual well-being. So you can nourish your body through a process called intuitive eating. Intuitive eating, it is a research-backed framework that really dives into instinct, emotion, and thoughts. And it is an ongoing process. So I know a lot of us here really want to see like quick results. But intuitive eating is an ongoing journey. It's not necessarily linear. So what are the characteristics of an intuitive eater? Intuitive eaters, they rely on internal hunger and satiety cues. For example, you know when you're hungry, you know when you're full, you stop eating when you're full, you don't overeat. Maybe occasionally you overeat, but majority of the time you don't. You eat foods with unconditional permission. Like I said, you're not restricting foods. You eat for physical rather than emotional eating reasons. Again, sometimes you may eat for emotional reasons, but it's not what you're doing the majority of the time. And you're really trusting your body and respecting your body. So these are some of the benefits of intuitive eating. You're eating more variety. You appreciate your body, respect your body. You enjoy all foods. Some that are not on here is that you have less stress and anxiety, especially about like eating out or socializing. You, in terms of really more of like the medical side of things, your blood sugars are better controlled. You have a higher good cholesterol. And another thing as well is those who are intuitive eaters, if you're wanting or trying to lose weight, you actually lose weight and keep it off, versus those who are dieting, they usually yo-yo back and forth between losing the weight and gaining it back. You also have decreased thin idealization and comparison. So you're not constantly looking at other women or men and comparing yourself to them. You have decreased triglycerides. So that's a lab value of like your fat, for example. So you have decreased triglycerides in your blood. So intuitive eating and mindful eating, a lot of times they are used interchangeably, but I do like to just address like the difference. So intuitive eating does include mindful eating. However, intuitive eating is much more around that. It does address the issues of cognitive distortions and emotional eating as well. So we are going to dive into some of the principles here. So as you can see, we have 10 different principles. I'm not going to dive into all of these today, just given time. I'm going to dive into the first 5, and I will provide you guys with a resource though, so that you can continue looking through those. So the principle 1 is rejecting the diet mentality. So this is something that is, I think, one of the most crucial steps to starting your health journey. If you are someone who has been constantly dieting your entire life, you're trying the newest diet out there, this is what you really need to try and shift your mindset on before you really even go into the more nutrition side of things. So you really want to recognize that dieting actually causes more harm than good. Those who diet, they actually have a decreased metabolism. So it actually makes it harder to lose weight, research shows. You have more binges and cravings. You actually have more stress. And if you've ever heard of the CRP, which is your C-reactive protein, it's a lab value that you can get measured when you go to the doctor. Those who are dieting actually have a greater CRP because you have more stress and more inflammation. You have increased risk of premature death and heart disease, for example, increased risk of eating disorders. So as you can see, a lot of negative things that really are not talked about enough. And when I mentioned the increase like binges and whatnot, this really goes into that. So say you have negative thoughts about your body and you're thinking to yourself, I want to lose weight. So someone from work told you, I'm on keto, you should do keto. It works great. So you start your keto journey, you deprive yourself of all sugar, all carbs, fruit, etc., anything that has sugar. You are deprived of that. Then all of a sudden you have like a crappy day at work, or maybe you have other stressors that come up in your life. You, on the way home, you stop at like the gas station and you just like buy some Ben and Jerry's. You're just like, screw it, I need this. You end up overeating. It usually happens, you overeat it. Then after that, you feel super shameful. You're thinking to yourself like, wow, I feel so guilty. What did I just do? Wow, I hate my body again. And then you try a new diet. And this is really the diet binge cycle that so many people, both men and women, are in for years and years. So if this is you, then I really do recommend focusing on this first principle, especially. In order to do so, just be aware of the diet mentality and trying to shift that mindset. Get rid of the dieter tools. This is actually really hard for some people, but like delete that MyFitnessPal on your phone. It is not doing you good at all. And I can promise you that it's not that accurate. I've looked thoroughly into it. It is not that accurate. So just delete it. Be compassionate towards yourself. And I know like Valerie will go into more of the like emotional side of things as well, which I'm excited to learn about, but being compassionate towards yourself. Something I have my clients do, and you could even do it right now while you're listening to this, is write down 2 things that you really love about yourself that are not related to your physical appearance. Like think about just two things. And a lot of times it can be harder than you think because we are really harsh on ourselves. Number 2 is honoring your hunger. So when I said that earlier that dieting decreases your metabolism, it's because our bodies don't know that we're doing it on purpose. So when you're dieting and you're restricting, your metabolism goes down and it actually makes it harder to lose weight. So your body is essentially starving itself in a way. So honoring your hunger is eating when hunger is present. It's pretty plain. And you want to fuel your body when it's hungry to regulate your metabolism. So this is something I love using, and I actually use this myself. I truly do. So this is the intuitive eating hunger scale. It's a scale of 1 to 10. And basically the thought process is that you want to start eating when you're a 3. So you always want to think to yourself, you can print this out if you want, I don't, but when I started learning about intuitive eating, my husband would make fun of me at the dinner table because I would say, oh, I'm like a 3 now. I'm going to start eating. So 3 is when you really want to start eating, and we'll go into, or when you want to stop eating would be a 7. So really you're going to be sticking back and forth between these 2. Now, life happens. Sometimes you're going to get to that 1. But research shows when you are getting all the way to that 1 more frequently, you usually tend to overeat, and it makes it harder to reach your health goals. And then on the opposite end, when you hit that 10, that's like Thanksgiving Day, you've had like, more than your usual amount. It's a holiday, so it's totally fine. But if you're doing that really, really frequently, you're likely having an unhealthy relationship with food, and you're really just not in tune with your fullness. So for hunger, start eating at a 3. That's for snacks, that's for meals, that's when you're currently eating. You could think to yourself, am I still hungry? Principle 3 is making peace with food. So no more deprivation. I think I've seen a lot of like women's names on here. I know research shows that women are more likely to diet than men are. And I think a lot of it is because of the diet culture and the pressure that's on us and the thin idealization that we all feel. And we tend to make a list of forbidden foods. And some of the most common ones I hear as a dietitian are like carbs, for example, or sweets. So instead of saying, I can't eat carbs, allowing yourself to eat carbs, and that will help you once you allow foods to be let into your daily routine, you're less likely to like binge on them later on. So after this, you could make a list of those foods. You could check off which of those that you currently eat and those that you restrict. Give yourself permission to eat at least one of those forbidden foods. when you are eating it, check in to see how it tastes. If it tastes good to you and it also makes you feel good, meaning like, you know, you're not lactose intolerant and you're eating ice cream type of thing, then give yourself permission. And again, allowing yourself to eat it, you're more likely to feel more in control around it. So you can keep that food around. Principle 4 is challenging the food police. I'm sure so many of us here have either been around a parent or a aunt or a coworker or a sister, etc., who they're not maybe even saying it directly to you on purpose, but you know, I so often hear from women that their mom always was saying, well, sweets are bad, you can't have sweets, or things when you're growing up. And we're often taught when we're growing up that foods are either unhealthy or healthy. So instead of thinking of it that way, changing your mindset and give yourself permission. Again, going back to the other one, give yourself permission to eat those foods. And then principle 5 is that fullness factor that I mentioned. So recognizing what comfortable satiety feels like. This can be really hard. And going back to the way we're raised, most of us likely were taught that we can't leave the dinner table until we clean our plate. Like that was me 100%. And that makes us feel like whenever we do have food in front of us, we have to finish it or else the food's going to go to waste. So you can always go back to eating. So even if you have like a tiny piece of salmon, like 2 bites left, you could easily just put that in the fridge and go back to those 2 bites like an hour later if you wanted. So giving yourself permission to eat that food later. In order to really tune into your fullness and hunger, I encourage you to eat without distractions. It's easier said than done. Like I work when I eat all the time at lunch, but I really encourage you, especially when you're having like very high stress levels, taking 5 minutes. Like I will literally leave my phone in my office. I will go outside and eat my lunch. Even just 5 minutes, it really helps. Pause while you're eating, feel your fullness. You can match the pace of like a slower eater, put your fork down in between bites, whatever it is, just so you're being more in tune with it. And then again, this is that fullness scale. So like I said before, with hunger, you want to start at a 3. Similarly, with your fullness, you want to stop eating at a 7. And that's when you're just like full and satisfied. You're not super full. You're not feeling sick. And all of these factors and the way you feel will be subjective. The way that I feel when I'm full will likely be different than the way you feel when you're full. And it could also vary day to day. So just a few myths. The number one thing I hear is that, well, you know, you're saying I can eat whatever I want, so I'm going to eat like all the ice cream or all the cookies. And that's really not true, because when you give yourself permission, you actually end up self-regulating. And you don't necessarily want that every single day and every single moment. You stop obsessing over it. And intuitive eating causes weight gain. So research shows that intuitive eating actually leads to a lower BMI, and dieting causes weight cycling and more so weight gain and inflammation. And then lastly here, this is an awesome resource if anybody here wants to learn more about intuitive eating. I love this intuitive eating book. I still refer back to it. You could also go to intuitiveeating.org if you're maybe not wanting to fully dive in, but you're wanting to read about the other principles. All right, and I'm going to hand it over.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you.
So let's talk about what intuition is. We've talked a lot about intuitive eating, and we've heard some really amazing tips from Allison about intuitive eating. But what really is intuition? So of course we go back to the dictionary, right? What does the dictionary say? It's our natural ability or power that makes it possible to know something without any proof of evidence. But really my favorite part of this definition is the second half. A feeling that guides a person to act a certain way without fully understanding why. That's really powerful, because that's really saying that you actually know what you need, right? You know what your body needs. And it's your knowing without really fully even understanding why. So today we'll really discuss this kind of in depth. So is it intuition or is it instinct? Which is which? Instinct is usually related to an action. And it's also usually related to fight or flight responses. So it's usually present with pain or based on fear. It's usually a trauma response or a protective response that's actually been passed down to us through our DNA. And instinct comes through our brainstem, which is one of the first parts of our brain that gets formed. Then if you think about intuition, intuition is usually based on a decision more so. So it's your inner knowing, and it comes from the prefrontal cortex, or this front part of your brain. And coincidentally enough, that's actually also where your third eye sits, or ajna. And that is the space between your eyebrows, and it's a chakra or energy center. And you can establish your intuition through that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later, but let's look at these pictures that we have here on this slide. So I'm curious, has anyone ever accidentally burned themselves or touched something hot, right, that you shouldn't have been touching? Immediately you draw your hand back. Is that instinct or is it intuition? Well, I would argue that it is instinct. And why? Because instinctively, and what's been passed down to us from ancestors before, is we really don't want to touch that hot thing because that's going to cause a burn on our skin, that's going to cause an injury. So we draw back on instinct. Think about if you've had a stomach ache or something going on internally in the GI system, right? Is that instinct or is it intuition to curl up into that fetal position? Well, I would argue that that's also instinct, right? Because it's our instinct to shield that injured area or prevent it from moving. And we also remember from the womb that the fetal position is a place of safety. Next, kind of leading on, is dancing instinct or intuition? Well, I would argue that it's intuition. You're moving in a way that your body feels good, right? And even if the dancing is choreographed or you're a choreographer, you still have an ability to sense where your body naturally wants to go next. Has anyone ever been working at the desk and you end up in this kind of forward position, head is forward, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need to stretch, right? Instinct or intuition? Stretching at the desk is actually your body craving movement after being in a stiff or sedentary position for a while. And usually that movement is the opposite of what the body was just in. So if my shoulders were rounded forward, my body is actually wanting to expand that area and move my spine. So what is intuitive movement? It's actually a concept of listening to your body to determine the type of movement that it needs in that moment. And it's really a practiced skill. There's actually not a lot of research done on intuitive movement, and it's really unfortunate. Unlike intuitive eating that has books and websites and lots of research behind it, intuitive movement really doesn't have a lot of research behind it, but it makes sense, right? So we're going to conceptualize it with the framework of what exists with intuitive eating and what exists in the research for psychology and intuition. What are the benefits of intuitive movement? Well, movement is no longer a chore. It helps us to reframe movement. So without knowing, if we're going back to the definition, right? Without knowing, you're stimulating those energy centers, those chakras, and balancing your energy and promoting bliss. You're recognizing when your body is craving rest and you're giving it to yourself. As Ali was saying earlier, you're giving yourself permission. Movement should feel good in the body, and perhaps You might have a light stretch or maybe even a little bit of muscle burn, but no pain. And if we're intuitive about our movement, we're moving in a way that our body is asking for, we'll really be able to release some tension patterns, because our body knows when we're holding our stress in our shoulders or in our low back, and it knows when we need to stretch and when we need to move and release what's no longer serving us. Also, you're removing stiffness through lubrication of the joints. So really that can help relieve pain. And then finally, you'll be able to preemptively ward off diseases and sense changes in your body if we're learning when we need movement, but also when we need rest. So based on the principles of intuitive eating, based on the book that Allie mentioned earlier, and the principles that she mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about different principles of intuitive movement. So first, our first principle is rejecting the weight loss mentality. A lot of times people will go to the gym and will say, well, my goal is I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, here's the thing about setting that as the particular goal. While it is a specific goal and you've chosen a number, weight itself is a number that does not take into consideration the whole picture. So it doesn't take into consideration percentage of body fat. It doesn't take into consideration the amount of muscle. Weight is a secondary effect. And when we have this weight loss mentality, as Allison was talking about earlier, that can support resentment and shame if we don't reach that goal. But movement can support good health without resulting in weight loss. I'm going to say that one more time because I feel like someone needs to hear that again. Movement can support good health and not result in weight loss. Movement has so many other different benefits. There's cardiovascular or heart benefits, strong muscles, improved metabolism, but those do not have to equal weight loss. With intuitive movement, we're servicing our mind and our body and our spirit. And that is more important than any number. Yeah. So then the next principle, honor your desires, rest or movement. Has anyone ever binge watched Netflix? Or okay, me neither, but just in case you have sat in front of the TV for 5 hours, have you ever desired to get up after a while? Or what about when you're feeling sick? Have you ever looked back on, have you ever looked, I see an amen over there, yep. Have you ever looked back on how you were feeling before you actually got really, really sick and been like, ooh, I was kind of tired that day, or I wasn't really feeling good that day, right? Your body was craving rest before you even knew why you needed it, right? Just like if you're sitting there for 5 hours and we're watching TV and you're like, I gotta stand up, I gotta walk around, I gotta take a lap around the house. Your cravings are telling you something, right? So what rest and recovery are equally as important as movement and mobility. And the balance is really what's key there. Number 3, find the joy in movement. Movement does not have to look a certain way. So let's just go ahead and nix out the idea that movement has to look like you're going to the gym. It doesn't. And in fact, movement doesn't have to look like you're running around the block if you don't like running. That's okay. You don't have to enjoy running, but find the joy in movement. Movement is dancing, a 30-second dance party. Movement is biking to work. It's playing outside with your kids. It's gardening. It's whatever brings you joy. There's actually this study done where individuals who were lifting heavy objects over 50 pounds for their line of work, and they were using their arms a lot and moving their arms in different circular motions. They were making sure that they were squatting a lot, right? Squatting a lot, lifting things, moving their arms, etc. And these same individuals, this was a psychology study done, these same individuals actually said that they don't ever have time to exercise. But if I told you that there was an individual who squatted 50 pounds for 100 repetitions a day, and they were doing shoulder blade stability exercises for 30 minutes a day, you'd be like, whoa, that person is fit. That person is really in tune with their body. They are really, really ripped, right? We don't necessarily think about the fact that if that's your line of work, you are doing the movement, you are doing the things, right? So don't cheat yourself of that on a daily basis. What you do, if you are walking 20 minutes to get your lunch in the middle of the day, you walk 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back, that is movement. That is movement. So I always like to say that movement that's good is movement that you do. I can give you a routine to do all day long, but if you're not motivated to do it, or it doesn't resonate with you, that's kind of pointless, right? So get creative with what movement looks like for you and find the joy in it. So the next principle that we want to talk about is connecting the mind and the body and the spirit, right? Beware of dissociation. That can happen where we kind of numb ourselves, or we're not in tune with what our body is saying as we're moving. Have you ever seen the person in the gym who's just like, and just like really giving it their all, but I wonder what their body's saying, right? I wonder if we slowed it down a little bit, released the no pain, no gain mentality, if we could really connect with the breath and control our movement and really tap into what our body, what our mind, what our spirit is saying. A lot of times when we're moving our body, we're moving it because we need to release something or we need to receive something. And so if we're slowing things down and checking in with ourselves, we're really able to do a lot of work, not just on our physical body, but on our energy body, on our spirit body. Yeah. And our last principle that we want to touch base on today is challenging the wellness police, right? So very similarly to what Allison was saying earlier, we want to challenge this culture that dictates what counts as movement. You are the expert on your body. And so movement is exactly what you make it. It does not have to mean doing one particular thing. And a lot of times we'll have friends or even family members that are like, well, I've been to the gym 5 times this week and I've done this and I've climbed this amount, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And to that you say, that is fantastic. I'm so happy for you, right? But we don't take that on for ourselves. We operate under the premise of being gentle with ourselves. Remember, your autonomy and your authority over your body is your own. And remember, as Allison was saying earlier, it's a journey, it's an ongoing process, but it's a beneficial one. So the benefits of tapping into intuition in general, we're going to shift gears a little bit because we were talking about intuitive movement. And now we're going to shift gears again to really hone back in on intuition, that energy space in between our eyebrows, the crux of intuitive movement and intuitive eating. The benefits of this are establishing your inner wisdom, enhancing your decision-making. Decision-making will be maybe a little bit quicker, right? As Allison was saying earlier, you're gonna get to the point where you self-regulate, right? So we're not necessarily thinking about, oh, what do I need to eat? What do I need to eat? Because if I don't eat this, then this, if I don't eat that, then that, right? Or we're not saying, oh, I know I need to work out today, but what am I gonna do for my workout? I'm dreading running, and we're overthinking it. or in general, right? If we're trying to make a general decision about something, if we are tapped into what we need to release, what we need to receive, that decision-making process is a little bit more enhanced. That time frame that we're spending making that decision is a little bit decreased because we have this inner trust and we know that I know my body, I know myself, I know what I need. And so we've reduced that overthinking. We can build intuition through movement and through meditation. There are a plethora, a lot of different poses and practices that we can use to really heighten our intuition. And today, I'm going to take you through a very gentle movement practice. And you can be in your chair to do this. I'll be in my chair so I can be the model of sitting and doing this. Or where you can also choose to come to your yoga mat, whichever. But we'll do a little bit of a gentle movement, and then we'll do a little bit of a gentle meditation, and then we'll move through the rest of our time today. So if you're sitting in your chair, wonderful. If you're on your mat, beautiful. Wherever you are in your comfortable seated position, kind of shift your weight side to side and see where your hips rest. Where do they feel comfortable? And you are welcome to close your eyes if that feels good for you, or you're welcome to keep them open. We're going to take a deep breath in and sweep our arms up and overhead. And really reach up and overhead to receive wisdom, guidance from the universe, from the divine. Keep your arms lifted. And as you exhale, allow those arms to come down by your side. And then we're going to round the spine and bring that gaze down toward your belly button, chin toward your chest. And as you're here, receive that wisdom and internalize it into your body. Inhale, we're going to sweep those arms back up, receiving divine guidance and wisdom. And exhale, we're going to round through and internalize it. We're going to come back up to a straight spine on our inhale. And with eyes closed or eyes open, we're going to shift again, feeling that pelvis rocking side to side, forward and back. Maybe you take your hips in a circle where you are right now. Generating a little bit of heat in that pelvic area. And then if you're taking your hips in a circle one direction, maybe you reverse. And maybe you come to a nice still position with your hips. I invite you to feel your connection with the earth. Imagine a string from the very base of your spine. That string travels down through the seated surface that you're on, down through the floor, down to the ground, past the foundation of cement, through the dirt, past where our ancestors lie, down, down, down to the core of the earth. And feel your rootedness and that string as it wraps around the core of the earth. Feel that energy that connection to what holds us up every day, that sureness, that solid ground that we walk on every day. This is what supports you as you receive that guidance. This is how you know you are on firm ground and you are not shaky and you are not alone. And feel the energy coming up through that string as it drives all the way up through the base of the spine, all the way up the back of the spine, all the way to the crown of the head. And I invite you to sweep those arms back up and overhead, reaching again for that divine guidance. This time, clasp the hands in prayer and bring the prayer through almost to heart center, but stop right there at the eyebrows or the space between the eyebrows. And take a moment to massage that space between the eyebrows. Maybe take your thumbs or maybe take your palms and rub that space between the eyebrows. Take a moment to ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? What can I release in this moment? I invite you to take 3 cleansing breaths, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. I invite you to release your palms into your lap. And as I like to incorporate into any class that I usually teach, and Nick Holcomb, who's on this call, can attest to this, we're going to take a moment to move in any way that our body sees fit. And usually I do this with a little bit of movement, but for now, and because most of our cameras are off, we're going to move in a way that feels good for you. If you've got a song in your head, maybe you take a moment to jam to that beat a little bit. And we'll take about 10 more seconds, and then we'll come back into the space. All right. And I welcome you all back into the space. So feel free, if you'd like to take a couple more minutes to kind of come back into the space. Maybe that awakened something in you that you would like to jot down. Take a moment to journal. If there's anything you'd like to share in the chat with everyone, you're more than welcome to as well. And we'll keep going through our session for today. Ultimately, Allie and I really just want you guys to know that everybody deserves body-specific healing. And so through intuitive eating, through intuitive movement, through individualized plans, we really just want you to know that your healing, and this means what healing means to you, matters. And we are just here to help facilitate that. And so with that, we have a couple of offers that we like to extend to you all as a thank you for coming and sharing this time in this space and your energy with us. So you are more than welcome to begin your intuitive movement journey. Get excited. If you'd like to do that with Priority One Wellness, you can receive $30 off of a $75 value for your first individualized one-on-one breath and movement session. You can use the promo code POW, POW 111. And you can go to my website, which is priorityoneWellness.net/services.
Thanks so much for that, Valerie. That was great. I feel very just like calm and at ease right now. That was amazing. Thank you for bringing everyone through that. So I am offering 3 free nutrition, say that 3 times fast, 3 free nutrition and intuition sessions. This is a one-on-one personalized nutrition coaching call with me to discuss your health goals, identify what's holding you back and what's not working, and help you to create a plan to move forward. We go through like ideas for recipes, actionable steps. I will answer any nutrition questions you have. And then also, as I said, limited to the first 3 people who sign up. So I will put the link in the chat. Valerie, maybe if you want to put your link in there as well, so people have both. I'll put this in here. And next we will open it up for questions. You can feel free to put them in the chat box or yell them out. They can be in general or to either of us specifically, whatever we can support you guys with. We'll give you guys a minute here. I did get a question before this started from someone who couldn't make it for Valerie about your recommendations for how to get started with meditation for like a beginner.
Absolutely. Meditation can actually be really daunting because a lot of times people will say, well, it's not for me because I can't sit still. First, I would say you don't have to, right? You can do a walking meditation. A walking meditation is really just going on a walk and intentionally thinking about what you are doing. So I'm taking steps in this pattern. Maybe you speed up the pattern, maybe play around with slowing down the pattern of your walking. Or you are intentionally noticing, I take this many breaths with this many steps. Or maybe you're saying, okay, I'm noticing the sun is right there. And then I notice this reflection over here, or I'm noticing this animal that I see over here. You're starting to really take in the scenery. You're using all of your senses. I smell this, I hear this, I taste that. Mm-hmm. That is what's called a walking meditation. I know my husband does that a lot. But meditation can look very different for each individual. And I would say it starts off by just having some sort of awareness of what you're doing. And then as you kind of still yourself with that awareness and you slow yourself down, eventually you'll come to a relaxed enough state to be able to then really drop down into some real awareness of the body on different levels, because there are different energy levels that we have in our bodies. And so I would say really just start off with mindfulness to move through to get to meditation. Yeah,
sharing that.
Thank you.
I got a direct message from someone. Oh, thank you everyone for the kind words.
Thank you.
I got a direct message asking about mindfulness and eating. Mindfulness and eating it's, as I said earlier, it's easier said than done. It's one of those things that it sounds like it's going to be easy, but it can be very difficult. I know A lot of my clients are very busy individuals with jobs or other things going on. And even just taking like 10 minutes to eat a lunch can sometimes be very like daunting and just seem impossible. So some of my recommendations, and again, not all these will work for every person, but if you're someone who's like a calendar based person, like a schedule or a planner, just marking off like 15 minutes at lunchtime. Maybe you won't use it every day, but it can also just be a reminder for you to enjoy your lunch and set time apart for that. As I said earlier, eating without distractions. So putting your phone away, the mindful walking that Val mentioned earlier, I found that to be really beneficial for me. When I was going through a really stressful time years ago, I would go on mindful walks and I would leave my phone, which is really hard for me. I spend a lot of my work is, virtual. So, but it's really good to get out of that headspace. And for me in that time, I would pay attention to sounds. I would focus on sounds because that gave me like a task to do, but hear birds chirping, things like that. The same kind of goes for eating, in that you can like listen to what's around you and listen and like look at the food. So even the way your like fork like hits the food, like the way like the crunch or like the, whatever is happening, even just again, spending 5 minutes, setting your phone timer for like 5 minutes and eating, it can be really beneficial to just get in that habit. And if you live with a partner, spouse, roommate, or just like do it virtually with someone, you guys can like, have a kind of like mindful eating session together where you're putting away that technology and whatnot. So those are some of my go-to recommendations.
That's big. That's really big. And would that be a good way to address the binge diet cycle?
Yeah. Mindful eating is always a really good starting place, especially with when all the steps of intuitive eating does seem daunting. So yes, I think that, as well as, ditching the diet mentality. So that's really a lot of mindset work, as well as giving yourself permission to eat foods. Yeah.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Oh, thank you all so much for this love in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll share our contact information with you guys. And if you have any follow-up questions or anything that you want to discuss, we're happy to do so on a one-on-one basis. We both offer one-on-one sessions because it's really important to do things individualized.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming today. We appreciate you all. Again, don't hesitate to reach out if you guys have any questions, and I hope everyone has a good Friday and good weekend.